The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hello and welcome to Perspectives. My name is David Schoneman. I'm your host on this program. I'm also the alderman for Ward 3 in the city of Nashua. On Perspectives, we take a look at a variety of issues that are of importance to you, the taxpayer and voter in the city of Nashua. We like to keep you informed so that when election time comes around, you know who you're voting for and what they stand for and what the likely outcome of the election is going to be in terms of how it affects your tax bill. We've had a very difficult time in the budget season this year, and it's been characterized by manipulations of the spending cap that have even resulted in a suit. 2 suits have been brought against the city of Nashua. Today we're going to talk about those 2 suits. And with me today to talk about these is former Alderman Fred Teeboom. Fred Teeboom is one of the parties that has sued the city over spending cap manipulation. We'll hear his take on the current budget cycle. Fred, thank you for coming in and welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. Be here again.
Good. Well, thanks. So let's talk about where we're at, how we got here. The budget season started with this big crisis, and then we had a sewer fund legislation that came in to really thwart the charter,
Right.
overturn the cap essentially,
Yeah.
and then create this gap that has now been filled with all kinds of spending.
Yeah, it's all completely arbitrary. First of all, there is no crisis.
Right.
There's absolutely no crisis in the city. But you got a budget just got adopted last Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
That's $10 million more. I think 4.3% more
Yes.
than last year's budget.
Right.
And that the seniors got no increase in their Social Security pensions, and most people don't have an increase. It affects the tax bill. My tax bill is now $7,000 roughly. So 4% means $280. Right. It turns out that the average tax bill in Nashua, if you look at the total tax levies, around 200 million. Look at the total number of tax properties, around 28,000 some thousand properties, 28,800 thereabouts. Divide one and the other, you see the average tax bill is about $7,000. Mm. That means about $300 increase just this year. And next year will carry forward to the next year, because budgets always go up.
Yes.
Budgets never come down.
Right. It's not going to be a $300 increase next year and a $300 decrease the year after.
No,
not going to happen.
It's going to be $300 and then
$330
on top of that.
and
So,
more on top.
You know, it just got to a point it's not acceptable. And in 1993, about 25 years ago, a group of people got together. I joined them later. I didn't found it, but I joined soon after, and they were just ticked off about this kind of thing happening. And the short of it is, we passed the spending. We got a spending cap through a citizen petition, and the spending cap says, you know, the budget next year and the following year cannot be more than the cost of living increase or the budget this year. And there was a change through a couple of years ago. They wanted to change that index by which to make a change. There's a minor change, but the fact that the spending cap has pretty much held for 24 years.
Right. There is a provision to go above that cost of living increase.
Right.
It requires 10 votes.
Guys, 10 votes.
Because there can be emergencies that arise.
And it has on occasion, has been overridden basically on the street administration, I think 3 times or so, during his 8 years in office. Mm-hmm. But on the Loza's 8 years of office, has never been overridden.
Right.
And here comes Donch's second year in office, pushed on this thing last year, tried to get the mandates to be outside the cap.
Right.
I was able to stop that.
Yes.
And now he's pushed that, take that entire wastewater fund, $17 million outside the cap. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the cap calculation, and for those into the details, that's in the budget book. If you get the annual budgets on page 11, shows it's calculated, and you can see where the $17 million, when it goes outside the cap, creates a gap. Mm-hmm. And the gap in this instance is $9 million. So you could spend $9 million more without needing the 10 votes.
Right. And that was the whole idea behind it. Because I think that the intent ahead of time was to present a budget that they knew would not get 10 votes.
Exactly. He didn't have 10 votes.
He didn't have 10 votes. He knew he didn't have 10 votes. So he wanted to be able to have a mechanism to put through a much larger budget that he could pass with a simple majority of 8 votes.
Exactly, with 8 votes.
Right.
And what happened?
He needed 10 anyway.
And you got 10 votes.
Well, we got 10 votes. Yes,
and what
we
happened?
did get 10
One
votes.
of the aldermen, well, you explain. You're in the budget. You're in the...
Sure. I'm on the budget committee. And of course, we also had the vote this past Tuesday, as you point out. There were 6 votes against the sewer fund transfer.
Right.
And the argument that those 6 people made was that this is a violation of spending cap.
Right.
And that's the reason. And I don't think any one of those 6, certainly I would not have objected to having a budget cycle where we actually talk about the need to go over the cap,
Right.
but face it head on. Don't do some kind of an end around. So this was an end around of spending cap. We had 6 votes against that legislation. And my assumption really was that we would probably have 6 votes against the budget because the budget was based on that spending cap manipulation. So instead we had to vote on Tuesday, and we only had 5 votes against, and there were 10 votes in favor. And the one of the 6 who changed his vote from the sewer fund vote to vote for the budget was David Dean.
David Dean.
I haven't spoken with him. I don't really understand why he changed his vote, but he did change his vote. And I'd like to hear what he has to say. He was not able to attend the meeting. He phoned in and didn't offer any explanations. No one asked, but phoning in is kind of hard to make any kind of a speech.
You have any idea why he would have changed his vote?
I do not know why, unless I believe him to be pragmatic at times, and he may have thought there was going to be too much turmoil in the city from having to start the budget process all over again, or potentially losing the suit and having to start the budget process all over again. And maybe he didn't want to put the city through that. Beyond that, I really don't know.
Okay, well,
I'm only speculating.
Well, let's talk about his lawsuit then.
Okay.
Because I brought a lawsuit in the city. And,
Yes, you did.
And Dan Moriarty, one
Yes.
of your aldermen large, also brought a lawsuit in the city, which are pretty much the same, same focus. And it's all based upon this illegal, unlawful transfer of the sewer fund away from the cap.
Yes.
You know, before I file a lawsuit, you don't file a lawsuit. Let's start off saying you don't file a lawsuit easily. It's a lot of work. It's not a big expense in New Hampshire. It costs you about $300, $350 to file a lawsuit. That's not it. It's the effort and the research that goes into it. On top of that, I try to get lawyers to do it for me. You know, it's easy to get a lawyer to do it for you. Lawyer take care of it. You know, you sit back and pay the bill.
All you got to do is pay the bill. That's right.
Now, it's a big bill, but if you can contain the
A lot
lawyer,
more than
maybe
$300.
Now, the national taxpayers, I go back to '93, we had a pro bono lawyer, Woody Haskell. So the first guy I called was Woody Haskell. And Woody says, I'm kind of old now. I'm burned out. I don't have a fire in the belly. That's an exact quote. I said, okay, Woody, hey, he's now involved in negotiating pharmaceutical agreements on part of the VA. Fine. Then I called the next lawyer. You want a lawyer, that's not just anyone. You want a lawyer skilled in municipal law, because we deal with municipal law.
Yes.
The next guy I contacted was Kenny Brown, Attorney Brown. He's an expensive lawyer, but he's very skilled. The city has hired him, for example, to sue the state on getting more money for education grant. And he was successful. He got a nice piece of hunk of the money, but the city got also a big piece of money, and the state had to pay it. So I said, if he's that good, he can help us, help me in a lawsuit. He said, well, I'm now retired. I'm kind of tired. I'm part-time, basically. You can't afford me. He also said, it's going to take me a lot of research. Says a lot of research means a lot of money.
Yes.
All right. I'm not unskilled in this business. I have been involved in the Supreme Court lawsuit in the spending cap. You know, I go back to the beginning of time on this spending cap because I wrote the cap. And I also led the petition drive that got it on the ballot and led the election arguments to make it pass. And it passed pretty good.
Yes, it did.
And it passed twice. Because the unions, they hate it.
Oh, they hate it.
They absolutely hate it. And they tried like hell to get rid of it 2 years later. They did everything they could, all the way up to the Supreme Court. All the way to the Supreme Court. And we prevailed in the Supreme Court.
That's great.
But that doesn't stop people like Donches. I mean, people like Donches just like to spend. And Siegel, he may be a friend of yours, and he's a Republican. And he's a Ward 9 alderman. And he claims to be conservative. But the first thing he says is, this is holding us back.
Right.
It's not holding you back. It's the law. live within the law.
Exactly.
You uphold and take an oath to uphold the law.
I know. I listen to every time someone comes in for an appointment by the mayor, they raise their hand and they swear, and I listen to that, and it's to faithfully uphold,
The law.
the charter and laws of the state of New Hampshire.
Exactly.
So what happens to the laws and the charter?
And
They're
that's
just
the
trampled
problem.
underfoot.
So to come back to this lawsuit then, I said, I'll take the case because I know. I'm retired. I got excess time. Now it takes a lot of time. First, you got to study the rules of Superior Court. These are filed in New Hampshire Superior Court. Let me tell you, those rules are this thick if you print them out. And not all apply, but you got to figure out which
ones
apply. They're not written necessarily in the King's English. And a lot of them are written in legal speak that even the attorneys don't understand.
Yes.
Purposely so. But at least it's available online. In other states, you can't even get to the rules. There used to be a time in New Hampshire you couldn't get to the rules. You go into the court and they say, we don't practice law. Go see a lawyer. But Kelly Ayotte, I give her a lot of credit for the fact that when she was Attorney General, she held hearings and made the rules accessible. So you got to study the rules. They got to learn how to file the thing. Sheriff has to file. There has to be a particular procedure to file the motions. Then you got to learn how to file motions. Then, of course, the opposition, in this case being the city, and Attorney Bolton, who are skilled, first thing they will do is, hey, premature,
Right.
doesn't apply.
Yes.
You know, not ripe for action.
Yes,
Why?
I read
Because you
that in
haven't
the
voted on
paper.
this thing yet.
Right.
And, you know, dismissal. So then you fly back with another motion to counter the dismissal. So now you're flying back and forth with motions and counter motions. In this case, we got called before the judge on what they call a structuring conference. What is a structuring conference? Now you got to study what is a structuring conference. It turns out it's a pre-trial management conference. In case you want to sue someone for $1 billion, you manage the thing. If you want to sue somebody for wrongful death, you have a structuring conference because it's going to be a big trial, probably a jury trial. I said to the judge, you know, this is a simple case. We need a simple, fast, expedited hearing. So he took it under advisement, and lo and behold, I was able to come before the court a second time. Now we're arguing whether we should have a hearing. A hearing to have a hearing. Right? And of course, Attorney Bolton argues, you know, and I argue. And we just got an order last week. The order said, the aldermen haven't voted yet on the budget, so premature. We cannot make a judgment. So everything is stayed, what they call stayed. The dismissal motions are stayed. 9 motions for hearings and expedited hearings are stayed until you have your vote. Now, I expected this vote to be 9-6.
I did too.
It'll be slam dunk. I would go back to the court and say 9-6. I was hoping for the 9-6 to fail.
I expected it would.
And say, hey, you know, 9-6, it failed, but by the resolution, it passed because by the resolution, the way the resolution was written, it says, without that wastewater fund under the cap, we have no problem. We're what was it, $1.9 million under the cap.
Right.
But in fact, there were $8.1 million above the cap.
Right.
So majority vote passed. And then I would have had a good case saying,
Yes.
look, they destroyed. But suddenly you have a 10
Right.
to
Well,
5 vote.
there were a lot of phone calls behind the scenes. I'm sure.
Were there meetings behind the scenes?
Not that involved me.
Okay. Did the attorney call a meeting behind the scenes?
Not that I'm aware of.
You have to give the details if in case you did. Okay. Just a lot of
I'm just
meetings,
speculating. Probably
carefully-
phone calls and conversations.
and none of them involved a quorum of a committee.
None of them involved a quorum. And in the preceding budget committee meeting, Alderman Clemens was saying that he was likely going to vote against this
Against
budget
it.
for a different reason.
Yes.
And then Alderman Siegel went after him very strongly in that budget meeting. telling
Changed
him-
his mind.
And then ultimately, I'm sure there were some phone calls there too.
Between Siegel and Clemens
whoever
and
else, and
Siegel
Clemens
and
and-
Donches and
Right.
Donches and Dean and who,
Right.
you
Who
know,
knows?
one-on-ones, you know, outside the public view.
I would think so.
So, yesterday I filed the continuance because now that you guys have voted, We're now ripe. That's the term we use, ripe, R-I-P, like a ripe apple.
Okay.
You have to pray to the court. You don't address the court. You pray to the court. Like
Really?
the judges, yeah.
Oh.
The formality of the motion is we pray. You have to pray to the court. So the judge is a godlike creature. I mean, you have to.
That's interesting.
Judge, you can say all the things you want in court, but you got to first address by praying. I mean, these are the things you have to learn.
Yeah.
And they can just impress it at hand to say, inadequately filed, inadequately stated, insufficient facts, groundless, especially if you're not an attorney. I had a chance to become an attorney because I was taking correspondence classes back in the days when you could take correspondence classes in law. Well, something happened. I got married. I got sidetracked. We had children, and you know what happens if you have children. You get married. Forget it. But I'm in court so much now that the staff thinks I'm an attorney. They say, Attorney Teeboom. Hey, that's their fellow.
Good for you. That's great. So you went yesterday again.
I was yesterday again. Filed again. Attorney Teeboom will be filing again. Yes, look at the thing. Fine. So now we're going to wait for Bolton now to dismiss, object. He's got 10 days to object. Of course, he will object. He will say, this is all, perfectly legal. Mr. Teeboom has no idea what he's talking about. They don't quite say it. This is a very nice legalistic language. And then it's up to the judge. Now, this is Judge Stempel. Judge Stempel used to be a defense attorney before he became a judge, and I think he was a criminal defense attorney. So, he tends to be, I think he may tend to favor defense. I'm not clear, but so far he's been very nice to me. So beware of a nice judge.
Yes.
A nice judge may just hit you with a hammer. Okay. You can have nasty judges too. I've been in the court one time with, I think, Woody Haskell. This is interesting. Woody Haskell representing us in another case against Davidson about the budget. And Woody Haskell was an attorney, nice guy, but not really prepared. And Attorney McNamee, he's passed away, but nice attorney, competent attorney, who knows nothing about this budgetary stuff. They're into zoning issues and planning issues, the usual complaint about arguments about land use. But budgets, as you know, it takes a while to understand the national budget.
Oh, yes, it does.
You got this budget book here.
Yeah.
It took me about 2, 3, 4 years to understand.
Yeah, there's quite a bit in there, and it takes a while.
300 pages of $300 million, right?
Right.
You got $1 million per page.
Yeah, that's
$1 million.
right.
It's $1 million per page. It's $4,000 per person that lives in Nashua. We've got 80,000 people living in Nashua. That's about $4,000 a person. That's what's in that book. So these attorneys don't really know. So we had attorney Hemsey at the time. Hemsey is not a very nice guy. He was nice to juries.
Judge or attorney?
I'm sorry, well, the attorney and the judge.
Okay.
Judge Hemsey.
All right, judge.
He's very nice. That's going back about 10 years now. And Woody Haskell gets up and makes an argument. And Hemsey, he was a no BS kind of guy. He says, Attorney Haskell, I couldn't understand a word of what you said. And Haskell was kind of shook him. He sat down. Attorney McNamee, you give it a try. McNamee gets up. He says, Attorney McNamee, I have no clue what you said. I mean, to explain this budget.
Right.
He said, Mr. Attorney Haskell, I give you all my try. He's the attorney for the plaintiff. And Haskell was even more tongue-tied the second time than the first time. And McNamee gets up. He says, get the hell out of my courtroom and don't come back so you can explain this to me. Case dismissed.
Wow.
But they can do that.
Yeah.
It's their courtroom.
Right.
And if they get frustrated, see, these judges aren't into this national budget.
No.
These judges are into criminal cases, abuse cases, rape cases, theft cases, murder.
Sure.
Who cares about this budget stuff? They probably don't even live in Nashua. So the first challenge you have in bringing a case to court is explain your case in in both legalistic forms, so it's not off the wall, and so that the judge can quickly look what you wrote and get it.
And you were able to do this with this Judge Temple.
He didn't dismiss it during the structuring meeting, even though Bolton tried.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't do it during the hearing to have a hearing, even though Bolton tried. And now he comes back and says everything has stayed until you guys voted on it, so he didn't dismiss it there, in the final decision, and we're all back in court. So you have to get a judge's attention. But remember, these guys are pushing a lot of paper.
Yes.
All the motions that are filed, they have to approve. All the hearings. And I said to Judge Temple, you know, Judge Hemsey told me he doesn't read any of the stuff. He says he waits till the argument comes in. You know what Judge Temple said? I read everything.
Oh, good.
It's good for me.
Yes.
But I tried to keep my motions down to 2 pages. I also submitted my detailed argument into a memorandum of support for the motions. Now, whether or not he reads that, I don't know. He told me he would read it. That was about 12 pages. But the 2 pages they will scan. Will they look at the 12 pages in detail? I don't know. Are they going to look at this budget book?
No.
Not a your soul. So this is the challenge you face. Dan Moriarty, your fellow alderman, also filed a lawsuit, but he hired an attorney, Concord.
How is his suit different from yours, or is it essentially?
Well, the judge asked me that question, and he said, how is your suit different from Mr. Moriarty? I said, you judge, to tell you frankly, I'm not totally sure. He said, I'm aware of his suit. I've read his complaint. I have briefly talked to his attorney, and I think he's concentrating on the ordinance that you talked about. I'm concentrating on the charter. But the judge in his order, that said we got a week ago, has consolidated the case.
I see.
That means Moriarty appears at the same time that I appear. There's going to be no 2 separate hearings, no 2 separate. The cases are combined.
Okay.
We will each argue our case. So Seth Hippel, on behalf of Dan, Attorney Hippel will argue the case. I'll argue my case. Bolton will argue his case. There'll be 3 parties represented. And how will that work out? I don't know. You can't predict these things.
No, you cannot. You can't predict anything. I
predict
couldn't
these
predict the vote on Tuesday. We can't predict what's going to happen in the court case. But the fact that there were 10 votes doesn't necessarily mean the case is done.
No, the case, the way I understand the case, I argue. I don't argue to overturn the decision. I'm not completely sure, and nobody can tell me, whether the judge even has authority. You know, that authority is limited to law. They can invent things. You can have an out-of-control judge. But on issues, especially issues like this, judges stay to the law. And if you appeal, you really stay to the law. So appeal totally stays to the law. As you well know from watching the Hampshire, the national U.S. Supreme Court. So what was my point? I lost my argument.
We're talking about your suit is not about overturning the vote.
Oh, that's correct. So my filing is not to overturn the vote and redo the budget. One thing, you got 11 votes. I mean, you got 10 votes. Yeah. Now, somebody's not going to go back and change his vote. So that's foolish. If it had been 9-6, so would, in my opinion, fail, not have gotten 10 votes, I probably still wouldn't have asked to overturn the budget. Even Bolton claimed that $10 million reset is not a big deal. He claimed that during the hearing, to have a hearing, that $10 million, we could go half year through the fiscal year and find $10 million is not a problem. That's what he said.
Wow.
I'm not so much, you know, to reset this thing, that'd be a bonus. But that's not what I'm after. Probably what Moriarty is after. Maybe that's where the difference comes in between Moriarty's case and my case. He may argue, I want that $10 million back. I want the taxpayers to save that money. My argument is more in the charter. You violated the charter.
Yes.
If you violated it this year, you're going to violate it next year and the year thereafter. And if you don't stop these things, pretty soon there ain't no more charter.
And there's no more rule of law. This is very, very serious. We have elections in this country on all levels, and we're going to have different people in the mayoral office. We'll have different people as aldermen. We'll have different people as governors and senators and representatives, all this. But throughout all those changes, the folks at home need to know that there's still going to be consistency. And that consistency comes from the law. because every person who occupies the mayor's office is going to uphold the law. As long as the law stays the same, we're fine. But as soon as you get a person who comes in and says, nope, I can manipulate this, and if they are successful at it, it's very, very bad. This whole thing is very, very bad for the citizens of Nashua.
There's two principles in a democracy. One of them is to uphold the law and be tight on the law. You cannot obstruct that law. You cannot change that law. Now, I'm a watchdog. I've been an alderman, effective as an alderman. I'm effective as a citizen. I try to be. But it shouldn't really be up to citizens to watch their government.
Absolutely.
Make sure the government stick to the law. This is one of my arguments, by the way. It was in the hearing, on a hearing, that, why should I have to sit and bring this lawsuit?
Right.
Why should it be necessary for a citizen, not within government, to have to bring a lawsuit, what you call a writ of mandamus, is my earliest filing. Why do we have to watch the government to stay narrow to the law? That's principle number one. The other principle, even more important, is the independence and the integrity of the court system. Now, in law, in theory, Dodgers can call the police out. What to do in Russia, you call the police out. In most dictatorships and many even non-dictatorships, quasi-governments, democratic government, they call the cops out, they call the militia out.
Right.
Courts have no militia. They got a few guys that watch the courtroom, that's it. So you depend on, when everybody says, yeah, the judge made an order, and he will say, let's say, reset the vote, redo the budget thing was not properly done, let's say the case. You all say, okay, fine. If he says the budget is fine, case is dismissed, you say, fine, the judge has spoken. But the authority of the judge is strictly a morality issue. He can't send the troops out to say, enforce my law.
Right.
He can call the sheriff out to arrest a person who doesn't pay bail or doesn't, evades arrest. But he can go after citizens in a law case. You depend on the judge to have integrity. You depend on the court to have integrity. You depend on the court system to not take a phone call from Doncher saying, hey, I'm Mayor Doncher and I want you to take Teeboom and send him down the sewer line, okay?
I know.
You depend on the judge not to take that phone call.
Right.
There have been cases in a Supreme Court case, a terrorist case, where there's been an issue and they recalled him. He was forced out. But you depend on it. So these are the two things. You depend on government to adhere to the law and adhere to the oath. You depend on the judicial system to have integrity and not be politically influenced.
So we'll see what happens with this.
Yes.
I think it's about, I was telling someone else, in my 3 years now on the Board of Aldermen, this is the most pivotal time.
Is it?
Of my 3 years. Absolutely, because there's so much at stake. And not just the budget. I think the budget is a serious mistake for the budget, I think. The taxpayers are deeply harmed. But the greater harm comes from stomping all over the charter. And I think
stomping all over the charter.
Stomping all over the charter and throwing it out because it completely eviscerates rule of law. It eviscerates the Board of Aldermen as a counterpoint to the mayor, because it just becomes mayor wants this. And I'm not saying Donchis or Lozo or any other person who was in an office. It just gives the mayoral person, the mayor, the authority by precedent now to just do whatever they want with the charter.
Yeah,
that is
but you have to remember,
very, very wrong.
And remember, a lot of aldermen went along with him.
I know they
Before
did.
the change vote by Dean, there were 9 aldermen, and some would never speak.
Yep,
Siegel speaks.
Right.
Clemens speaks. You speak. I think that's about it.
That's about it. There are a few other people who chime in once in a while, but
Not really. Not on the budget
really.
issues. That makes
No.
me think, did they study the budget? Did they open the budget?
I don't
Did
think
they
they
look
do.
at the details? Did they understand what the green pages are, what the pink pages are?
They're basically
blue
following,
pages are?
they know who they want to follow. They take their clues from that person or that person.
Who's leading right now? Who's the person that's most leading the Board of Aldermen?
I would say the mayor, number one,
Yeah.
as a former alderman and as a persuasive guy. He's leading. So he had 8 votes sewn up because he was advocating spending. Those 8 votes like the spending, so they're going to do whatever he says because they think, well, he likes to spend, I like to spend, therefore I'm going to do anything that he says. And then the 9th was Siegel in this case, but I don't think Siegel convinced anybody because he didn't convince any of the others. He didn't convince the rest of us, and he didn't convince the 8 that were already there. In fact, they convinced him. So you had McCarthy and O'Brien and all those guys who convinced, and maybe Dodges who convinced Siegel to be on that side. And then I don't know how David Dean changed his vote, but maybe to avoid
Siegel resents having any constraint on the way aldermen should or should not vote. He feels a charter, because you mentioned this about, when you guys voted your 10 votes, you voted 10 votes because you needed to, because you had to increase in the line item, in the budget. The charter, in another part of the charter, says you have to have 2/3 vote every line item that's increased.
Right.
You guys took a transfer. You took that $200,000 that was going to give to the citizens to decide, you made it into overtime to the police department. That increased the line item in the overtime.
Even though it's flat effect total.
Doesn't matter. That's 10 votes.
That's right. Still needs 10
And that's
votes.
there for another constraint other than the spending cap.
Protection for the taxpayers.
Now, it turns out a 2/3 vote out of 15 aldermen, all 15 were there, it's 10 votes. It happened to be the same number, 10.
Right.
Siegel said he resents that.
Yeah.
He resented that. He resented
Yeah, he
that
did.
they required 10 votes.
Yeah, I think the protections are vital. I've said that before on the show, and I've said it in the Board of Aldermen meetings. The protections for the taxpayer are vital because too many of the aldermen have a closer tie to their pals in those departments, their pals in those unions. It's been brought up numerous times that at least 6 aldermen take money, campaign funds from the teachers union. I don't know about the police and the fire.
Oh, I did.
Just saying from teachers union, 6 of them.
Police also. Teachers also. Teachers union, police union, and the firefighters union are the most powerful unions.
Right. I'll tell you, they don't give me any money.
And they take also most of the money.
Yeah.
The police, the teachers, by far,
Yes.
and the firemen.
Yes.
So there's a correlation there.
There's a correlation. McCarthy always says, well, you can't assign cause. Well, okay, well, that's not assign cause. But the correlation is very, very strong. And from a statistical standpoint, when you got a correlation that's as high as that, you know that there's likely some cause and effect there too.
I appeared before the alderman, if you remember, a number of months ago, and I started reading.
Yes, you did.
I actually tracked the contributions made, and those reported. I mean, 1 or 2 aldermen, I think Karen and one other person, Dowd, I think, hadn't reported their full income.
Yes.
But it showed, like McCarthy got, you know, they usually get $1,000 from these unions. Even $500, $1,000, maybe some get 3 or 4. You may say that's a lot of money. There's a lot of money for a local election.
It is a lot of money.
And he objected. He objected. He said, you can't put, I said, this legislation, this happened to be about, I think, charter schools. We had the charter school.
Yeah.
He says, you cannot question my motivation.
Yes.
And I said, I can question your motivation. You accepted money from the union. From the teachers union who are vehemently opposed to charter schools.
Right.
I said, I can question, you cannot question my motivation. Remember that? And he shut me off.
I do. Well, there were 6 aldermen, 6 sitting aldermen who have taken money from the teachers union. There are 2 more who typically vote with that union bloc. And the 2 that didn't take it, according to the records that I found, I think, were June Karen and Tom Lopez. I didn't see any money from the union for those 2. Dowd claimed that he didn't take any money.
Yeah, but he didn't report his income.
Well, he also, in 2015, he had no opposition. So I saw his statements. He had no expenditures, no receipts, because he had no opposition. In 2013, he had opposition, and guess what? He had teachers union money in 2013. So he made that claim in one budget meeting, and I pointed out that, no, you in fact have taken money, but it was in 2013. In 2015, you had no opposition, you didn't take a donation. But I can also say, as you know, that these races don't cost a lot of money to run. They really don't. I'll spend a few $100s. Usually less than $1,000.
Yeah, but you're in a ward.
I'm in a ward.
And you're in a small ward. You're in a compact ward. It gets more difficult when you get to Ward 9, which is a very spread out ward. And large is difficult because you got to cover the whole city.
Got to cover the whole city.
So typically it costs you $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. You got to run it large. Program, if you run a decent race, get the signs, get 1 or 2 printers in newspaper, and have some handouts. Plan up to $5,000 and a lot of fuel letter, a lot of walking around.
Yes, I know about the walking.
In a ward, it's easier to walk around. But you know, the influence of the unions. I actually asked at that time Attorney Bennett. I said, "How can it be legal that you take a campaign contribution, let's say for the teachers' union, and then you vote the teacher's contract.
That's a very good question.
And I tried to get an ordinance passed that says if you take contribution from a union, you cannot vote as an alderman a contract on that union. He shut me down. He said that's not legal. Not legal under Supreme Court ruling or campaign contribution ruling, or the whole
Sure.
like Citizens United. Campaign contributions cannot withhold you from speaking
Okay.
an issue. Now, voting on an issue, that's how he held it. So unless you take that one to court and file
Yeah.
a court case
Yeah.
to say, which you probably won't win. Because I think if things are unclear, a little vaporish, the judge will side with the city. You have to be, like the lawsuit I have, you have to be crystal clear. You have to absolutely be in the right. You have to absolutely show that there are absolute violations of the charter. There's no squeamishness. There's no fuzziness. They have a case. If Bolton can, he doesn't have the facts, but he can put enough nonsense in. You know the rule of a lawyer, right? Argue a case with facts. If you don't have the facts, argue the case with bullshit, right? Yeah. That's the law. That's the rule.
Yes.
So he's arguing, of course, with all this vagary and nonsense. But if your case is a bit vague, you're not going to have a shot because the authority of the city will hold. And you see this in all the Supreme Court cases that you study in all these Superior Court cases. If there's any fuzziness on either case, it's like a cop stops you in traffic. He said, it's your word against a cop. Who wins?
The cop's going to win.
Always.
Right.
That's how law works in general. It's your word against the city. City wins. You have to be absolutely right. So if he catches you speeding, he can bring in. I actually brought a case in. You bring in. I got caught for speeding around the turn, and the radar, was all this stuff. I spent a lot of time researching the radar. Actually went to Concord and actually able to penetrate Concord. I misrepresented. I think I was a reporter. I was able to look at the guide to police about how to deal with radar stuff. I had all this information. I went to Hudson, argued my case. I had police understand how do you calibrate, what do you use to calibrate. They had no clue what I was talking about. Calibrate once a day, never heard of it. Supposed to calibrate once a day.
I see.
I had them all the way in the aisles. And one time the police police chief Darling, people may know who he was. Hudson jumped up. He says, "I object, Your Honor." And just as Police Chief Darling, since when are you the attorney of record here? He took it under advisement. I knew I'd lost the case because the judge wouldn't rule. He said, "I will take it under advisement." So guess what the ruling was? Letter came in the mail, opened up. Guilty. Yeah. You have to absolutely be, even if you bring an absolute case in, there's no guarantee you win.
Yes.
So to those who are listening, bring a case, be prepared, do your homework, and be absolutely sure you're correct before you're foolish enough to file a case against the city. But if you think you've done your homework, you think you're correct, you know what you're doing, you think you know what you're doing, you don't want to bring the case to court, and you're committed and convinced you're correct, bring a case by all means, and you may win.
I think you have all those characteristics, Fred.
Thank you.
I think you've done your homework, and you're certainly convinced, and you're very convincing. So I appreciate what you're doing. I think that the citizens of Nashua should be very grateful to you and to a number of other people, too, who stand up, come to the budget meetings, come to the public hearings on the budget, and speak against what is really a level of corruption in my mind. Because as soon as the charter is undermined like that, it is corrupted. And when you are corrupting it, that is corruption. And it's a very, very dangerous situation for the citizens of Nashua and for all of our futures. So thank you for doing that, and thank you for coming in today.
Thank you, Dan.
Folks, thank you for tuning in, too. We've had a very enlightening conversation here with former Alderman Fred Teeboom, who is one of the two parties suing the city over the spending cap manipulation and a violation of the charter. What Mr. Teeboom alleges is a violation of the charter, and we'll see how the judge rules. It's been a very interesting budget cycle for that reason. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.